Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The bigger picture, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning. Welcome to The Bigger Picture. And today we turn our attention to employees and how they manage expenses on overseas trips. To that effect, SAP Concur, which provides travel and expense management solutions for companies, recently unveiled its annual Global Business Traveler Survey, which revealed some interesting employee spending behaviors on the road. And we've enlisted the help of Charlie Sultan, President, Concur Travel, SAP Concur, to help unpack these findings. He's on the line now. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. First and foremost, could you help us outline some of the key findings from this year's survey and how they compare to previous years? How have business travelers' spending habits evolved?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Singaporean business travelers are navigating a new reality, one where comfort and being cost-conscious can coexist. We saw that nearly about half of business travelers in Singapore expect travel budgets actually to stagnate or decline this year, and a striking 91% of them have already experienced cuts to their allowances over this past year. And then the data is also revealing a dual persona, really, where travelers are being pragmatic with company money, but they're also willing to invest their own money in comfort, which is a shift from prior years, really, where company-funded perks were being enjoyed more freely.
Yeah, let's talk about the dual persona, perhaps on a different front. The survey suggests business travelers have one for work and another for vacation. What really sets them apart here?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We asked them, what are they more likely to do on a business trip instead of a personal trip? Close to 40% of them did say that they would stay in a nicer quality hotel, or they would book a premium room. They would book nonstop flights, even if they were more expensive. About a third of them talked about, they would order room service if they were on a business trip. They would give larger tips. But you also have some travelers that are actually starting to cut costs on business trips as well. We see that younger Singaporean employees, especially the Gen Z, are more likely to optimize their travel allowances.
You were talking about generational differences that came through strongly in the data. Why do younger travelers stretch allowances so differently than their older counterparts? Is it purely financial?
I think that the younger employees might be a little bit at the earlier stage of their careers, a little bit more attuned maybe to the value for money decisions, and maybe they still don't need all of the creature comforts that the older traveler set is looking for, perhaps. I think the younger travelers also really value the flexibility, the sustainability, and so they're also more likely to blend their business trips and their leisure trips. And so I think for those reasons, they want to make sure that they're not overspending on their trips, that they're allowed to take other trips as well. And so I think some of those preferences reflect broader lifestyle values as well, not just economic constraints, which is why I think they're trying to stretch their per diems. I think about half of them said that they would eat cheaper meals in order to be able to underspend their per diems. A quarter of them would be willing to prepare their own meals instead of dining out. And so I think there's a lot of that. You also see a crowd of them making the most out of freebies when they're on the road. So they might take leftover food home with them. They might take the amenities from hotels home with them, to return home. I think about a third of them were saying that they would do that. So I think you see a little bit of a blend there.
Yeah, interesting insights. Speaking of overspending, 2 in 5 employees, according to the survey findings, are willing to pay more for direct flights, even if they cost more. Now, is that about investing in productivity, or is it simply about personal comfort?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's not just about comfort. I think it is a strategic choice. Obviously, nonstop flights are reducing layovers. They minimize fatigue. They allow travelers to hit the ground running and be a lot more productive. Typically, they have a lower carbon footprint. So you really get 3 benefits of that, in the reduced stress, the productivity, and the better sustainability. Obviously, there is a strong element of personal comfort and preference where they do opt for a better travel experience, but I think that it's justified for those reasons.
Yeah, most travelers, Charlie, also willing to self-fund upgrades, it seems. Why do you think that is, and where do you think the line lies between company responsibility and personal choice?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting, right? Because they're saving money on some of the things like we talked about, like per diems and others, and they're also willing to spend their money on others. And I think, one of the things that we saw is about 2/3 of the respondents said that travel is essential to successfully get their job done. So they believe that travel is important. They don't want to sacrifice the corporate budget, maybe on an upgrade or some of these other things, and risk being able to take fewer business trips. So I think that they're willing to spend their own money to enhance the experience, but also be able to have more trips down the line. You actually see it as well with employees over 40. half of those respondents said that they were willing to pay more for nicer accommodations. And you see a lot of the crowd, about 93% saying that they're willing to spend their own money to make the trip a nicer trip. So I think that the shift reflects a broader trend, which is that employees are taking ownership of the travel experience. And it's also signaling a need, I think, for companies to reassess whether their policies are aligning with employee expectations and well-being.
Yeah, on that note, with shrinking travel budgets, we did talk about the fact that nearly half of business travelers in Singapore expect these budgets to stagnate or decrease this year. How might companies rethink their approach to business trips, such as destinations, policies, or even leveraging tech like AI planners to balance comfort and cost?
Yeah, I think that piece is really interesting, right? Shrinking budgets mean that the travel departments need to figure out how to be more efficient with their spend. I think for me, one of the things that I see out there as an opportunity is not having a bunch of bespoke solutions that don't talk to one another. I believe that to truly leverage the power of AI, and specifically agentic AI going forward, the companies are going to want to have all of their data, be it the travel data, the expense data, their budget, their ERP, their CRM, all in one place in a business suite. And I think that this access to a unified set of clean data is actually going to allow these agentic AI to make recommendations on travel spend and travel policy. You can see it getting really interesting, right? You can get to a point where instead of an administrator having to hunt for data to formulate a hypothesis about where to cut spend or where not to travel, that the smart system will be able to proactively highlight data trends to make recommendations. So, imagine if your CRM system could look at customer retention, could look at budget, can look at expenses, and all those things were tied together and could say something, Ryan, Emaad, you haven't visited this account in the last 12 months, and based on other attributes, they seem to be at risk of attrition. We see that accounts that get visited more often have a greater chance of renewal, so you should take this trip to Malaysia. And by the way, while you're in Malaysia, you should also go visit these 3 other accounts so you can be more sustainable, have a better chance of hitting your quota. So I think that companies are going to be looking for how they can really leverage the technology out there to help them solve a lot more than just the travel piece.
Yeah, they'll definitely be looking to structure smarter, more sustainable travel policies going forward from these findings. And helping us deconstruct the findings has been Charlie Sultan, President Concur Travel at SAP Concur. Charlie, thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.